We are here for another episode of the Andor discussion show. Jack did an absolutely incredible job last week. I loved listening to Jack and Math talking about episode 4 of Andor, so go back, listen to that if you haven't already. But this time, I'm joined by the podfather of Comics in Motion, and that is Mr. Dave Horrocks. Good sir, how are you doing?
I'm very good, Mike. It is great, as always, to speak to you again. Can't wait. This is the first time I've talked about Andor. Like you say, there's yourself and Jack, and then Jack and Math, and then I had to listen to the episodes, to be honest, to fully digest what happened. Weirdly, I don't know what it is about this series. I'm really enjoying it, but it's just a bit different where I'm not really that sure where it's going. You know, so I think that has helped me, those episodes, to structure my own thoughts, to be honest, you know, on you know, sort of listening to it and like, oh yeah, okay, I feel about it that way. So no, it's been good.
Yeah, I agree. I've been doing that with the She-Hulk episodes with Tonya and Spider-Dan. I've been loving those. And then also, it actually, when I appeared on it last week, it made me sad because I was like, oh, I can't listen to one this week. But I got to listen to Jack talk about Andor. And I don't listen to, whenever I record these, I don't listen to other people's thoughts on them before recording because I don't want to be like influenced in that episode. Because I've before done a recording and I listen to someone else go, this and this and this and this was terrible. And I'm like, I didn't think of that, and I don't want to just be poaching other people's thoughts. But being able to, normally when I do the Star Wars discussion shows, because I record one, or I watch the episode, make notes, record, vaguely edit, and then throw it out, I don't often even listen to other people's thoughts on it afterwards. So doing the back and forth with Jack's really fun for me, because I get to do that, and hearing Jack talk about certain stuff, along with obviously Math and then his guests that he's going to have over the coming weeks. I'm just really excited because when it's a week I'm not recording, it's like, I don't have to record. I'm not recording this week, so I get an extra hour. Plus I get to hear a Star Wars podcast. And Jack's always so insightful. Yeah. So this might be, it may not always be with Jack as the co-host, but I think the changing, so alternate hosting, I think especially for the longer series, I'm going to try in the future to kind of do that. You know, 6 episodes is not too bad, but when you start reaching 9+, it gets a bit time consuming. I'm sure you're aware because you're the busiest podcaster in the world.
Yeah, it is a good idea. I mean, well, you're asking the wrong person because me and Chris are just dickheads and we do way too much, and then we get annoyed with each other because we're so tired and we're like, fucking hell, right, oh, it's not working. But for most people who have lives, you know, it's good to spread it out, and I think the joint co-hosting thing has been brilliant. So, and you know, Disney, they're trying to kill us at the minute, aren't they? Because initially, like, She-Hulk was supposed to come out on a Wednesday, and it's like, and then they changed it, and I don't know what's going on really. I mean, how did they announce those dates? And then someone somewhere has gone, well, why would we release new content on exactly the same day? Surely, you know, we want to stagger it a little bit. Not, I mean, they don't give a shit about podcasters analysing this stuff, but, you know, you just want to watch it. You know, it creates a bit of pressure, you know, shit, I've got to watch it before I get bloody spoiled, you know, because unless I want to take a social media hiatus, I've got no chance. I will get spoiled at some point. So I think the fact that they did change it, move She-Hulk to the Thursday is good, but you know, stretching out the series, making them longer and stuff as well. It's great to have all this new content. But, you know, as podcasters, it creates a bit of a different problem, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm in that boat. It's like, you know, I'm trying to record Star Wars Comics in Canon once a week while also doing Andor every other week, while trying to also just appear on other people's shows, because as much as I love collaborating with the Comics in Motion family, I do want to try and expand a little bit to try and somewhat reach other audiences, but also meet new people to collaborate. It's one of the things I love about podcasting. But it's like it's like I have to do like I do 4 Comics in Motion collaborations and 1 non-Comics in Motion collab, and that's fine. I'm not complaining because I love podcasting and everyone in Comics in Motion is so cool. But it's like trying to balance Genuine Chit-Chat, Comics in Canon, any weekly discussion shows, plus guest spots, and also making sure Megan doesn't hate me for all of that stuff. All of the plus doing afterthoughts, which we've been doing as well.
So raising a puppy.
Yeah, that's taken a lot of time out of my day, especially when I'm working from home. But with Andor, so what did you? One thing I want to ask, obviously with Andor, I think most people are in the same boat of when the show got announced, everyone was like, "Oh, okay." I'll watch it because it's Star Wars, but I'm not like, it's not like the Ahsoka series where you're like, yes, I love that character, so I want to watch it. Or it's not like Kenobi, or if you're a prequel fan, you're like, yes. It was like, oh, oh, it's a rebellion show, maybe, and then the closer it got to release, I think the more hyped people were getting. So like, oh shit, this is going to be like Rogue One basically, but a series. So with you, what did you think of Andor, like when it got announced and stuff? I assume you're in a similar boat. And then the first 4 episodes, how have you kind of seen them so far?
So I think when it was announced, I didn't really. It wasn't one of those where it was like Obi-Wan series. Holy shit, I'm really psyched for that. I want to watch this, and it was like, right, okay. So I obviously it's going to be closer. If you were to draw a graph, in terms of how light the episode is and how much you're likely to enjoy it versus dark and gritty or something like that, some kind of graph, you would plot it somewhere around Rogue One. I felt like it was going to be there in terms of just the feel of it. And Rogue One, without a doubt, is the best of the kind of sequels batch of movies that we've had. So, it's quite up for it from that sense. But also the fact that they're going to create all of these characters that, though we're obviously going to be Easter eggs, nods to other people and stuff as well, but they could pretty much do what they wanted. And it's kind of what I wanted as well. This is a massive universe, or not a universe, really. It's a galaxy, and we've moaned about the Skywalker saga. And there's so much that they could explore that isn't that. A New Hope, the movie that I fell in love with and still am in love with. But it's kind of based around Luke Skywalker. Well, all right, he was basically the guy who shot the winning goal at the end, but he was just a small part of a massive, massive rebellion, and with so many moving parts and everything. So I was intrigued by it rather than massively chomping at the bit.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's one of those things that now the show's got going, I'm so bought into it. I'm like, it's one of those weird things because Rogue One was the ultimate movie that no one asked for, but everyone is so thrilled to have. I don't even know how it got made, in all honesty. I know there are lots of production issues, but like the premise being we're basically filling in a plot hole from A New Hope that people parody and moan about, but it's never been like a crux of Star Wars. It's never been like some of the issues in the prequels that people make them hate Star Wars. It's just like, blow up the Star Destroyer, whatever. And it's like, okay, so we're doing a prequel series. We're doing a prequel movie to that event. It's like, that can't be good. It can't be. And then you watch it and you go, I don't know what's real anymore. Because it's so well done. So brilliant. Every element of it is so well done. So with Andor, how did you feel about like the 3-episode premiere and then the 4th episode? How have you kind of taken them?
I think, to be honest, and I'm at a very busy stage in my life right now. Just the last few months have been a bit hectic. So I feel like I need to go back and watch those first 4 episodes again and be 100% concentrated rather than trying to squeeze in watching and like checking my phone and stuff. And so I've enjoyed them, but I'm sure there's been so much going on that I just haven't picked up on. I'm sure there are so many name drops that I should know. There's references to things, places that I'm like, oh, right, I should know this from this. But I've just kind of been in a state of watching it in about 60 to 70% concentration, I would say. But I'd say that first episode, I think it set the tone brilliantly because, when we meet Andor or Cassian in Rogue One, he's already part of the rebellion. So it was just interesting to see, him at the bar, or was it a brothel or something?
Yeah.
And then just kill those 2 guys who were pieces of shit, but I'm not sure they deserve to die, So it's like, all right, he's a bit grey, he's not a goody. He's more like Han Solo in the original New Hope, when he shot first. And then they sort of like, oh, no, he didn't shoot first. He's too good for that. No, bollocks. We want him to be a bit of a shitbag as well. That's what makes him interesting. So, yeah, I have enjoyed it. And then, it's... I just feel like I need to be a bit more concentrated, and I don't necessarily watch Star Wars to really pick up on all the political intrigue, if you know what I mean. If I sit down to Game of Thrones, I know I need to figure out, which house someone is in and who their allegiances are with, and what this conversation means. Whereas I tend to, watch Star Wars with a bit of a lighter mood, and I'm expecting it to be fairly obvious, even though years later I used to really dislike the prequels, but partially getting to know you and hearing you passionately talk about it and thinking about the actual story versus the execution of the movies, actually that has played on my mind. But when you're watching it, you're just like, ooh, lightsabers, so but it's only after when it's like, oh right, that was fucking clever, Emperor. Well done, you. You bastard. But that was clever shit. So I would like to go back. So I have been enjoying it, like I say, but I feel like I'd enjoy it even more if I concentrated a bit more. And for this episode, just because I knew I was coming on and speaking to you, I thought, right, I got to fucking concentrate for this one. So
it's funny because I often don't, before doing discussion shows, I often don't rewatch them, normally because I just don't have time. I normally watch it once with Megan and I'm making notes for out, and then maybe if there's something I missed or something I want to revisit, I'll then pop on Disney Plus, normally I'm working from home or something, and I'm playing with Willow for a bit, and then I'll just chuck it on the background. That's what I did today. So episode 3 I watched, I rewatched, and then this episode I rewatched again today. Megan was out tutoring and stuff, so I didn't have to try and make her watch something. She was like, I don't really want to watch Andor twice. It's like, trying to get her to watch it the once is a show that she likes, but she's not fully bought into yet. Whereas, so trying to get her to watch it twice is a fool's errand. But I watched this one twice, and I do find this show, I'm very happy we have it, but I feel like this show should have come a couple years ago. I feel like this almost should have been the first live action show, in the sense that, like, Mandalorian's great, obviously. I enjoyed Kenobi. I did enjoy episodes of Book of Boba Fett, even though it's definitely the weakest. But it's just that this show, I think, has come at a point where a lot of people have stopped caring about Star Wars. A lot of people just aren't fussed. Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi was very divisive. Half the audience disappeared and they didn't want to watch Rise of Skywalker. And then the rest of the audience who watched Rise of Skywalker was like, oh, this is pretty wank. Or at least not as good as we would want it to be. And you've got that mix with Solo that no one really asked for, and everyone just goes, yeah, it's a good movie, but it's not amazing. And then you've got a few series which, apart from Mandalorian, the other ones are quite divisive in certain ways as well. And I feel like most of my friends I think most of my friends haven't even watched episode 9 of Star Wars. They haven't watched any of The Mandalorian or anything like that. But they really liked Rogue One. All my friends who aren't that into Star Wars like Rogue One. And I'm like, this is the kind of show that I would recommend to people who don't really like Star Wars that much. Because I think the showrunner, Tony Gilroy, he even said he's not the biggest Star Wars fan. And that's actually what makes the show better in a lot of ways, because as much as I love Kenobi, it's basically plot hole filling and fan service, and I enjoy it. It's a couple of weak episodes, but I do enjoy it because it's made for me. It's literally, Mike, you like Kenobi, don't you? Yes. Would you want to just see him prequel era Kenobi basically get his ass handed to him and then whoop Vader's ass to oblivion? It's like, yes, I would like to see that. Yes, please.
Get that power from nowhere.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's just, he's got the high ground. Don't worry about it. But like with that, it's with this show though, it's not about, it's as you say, it's a show in Star Wars. And the way I described this, I think, in the episode I did with Jack was, this feels like a show made by HBO. It doesn't feel like a show I have to keep apologizing for. With all the Disney shows, apart from maybe Mando Series 2, there's always been that bit of, it's amazing for a Star Wars show. I don't rate any of the Star Wars series to be close to any of my favourite all-time big epic TV series, things like Sherlock, or like, ignoring the last couple series of Game of Thrones, basically what House of Dragon's doing now. Like a lot of these shows, or Chernobyl, it's obviously a one-off series, but it was so well made. The Crown is incredible. Things like that. None of the Star Wars shows really compared to that. Parts of Mandalorian kind of did. But this show feels so adult. This feels big budget. They're shooting on location. Just little things where I'm like, there's no prequel-esque bits that happen that pull you out of it. And you go, what? There's none of that I found. I want to know what you kind of thought, because I just waffled on there for ages.
No, I think it's a fair point, and one of the reasons I made the Game of Thrones comparison is it does feel a little bit like that, where all these name drops and things. You've got all of these different characters, so it's not like we were just focusing on Cassian and him alone. There's all these different people, on the Empire side and also on the Rebellion side, and they're not as obviously painting them as heroes and villains, like, in the classic Star Wars. So I think it is really adult. Would it pull in people? I don't know.
I think it'll pull in, but if someone who watched this, so this is almost like, if this is, unfortunately, no non-Star Wars fans are going to watch this, because this is, as far as it goes, quite obscure Star Wars, you know what I mean? But this is the show that I'd say, if you're not a Star Wars fan, and no one who's not a Star Wars fan is going to be listening to this podcast anyway, but this is the kind of show I'm like, if you can get someone who isn't fussed about Star Wars, but liked Rogue One, if you could get them into this show, this could get new people into Star Wars. It's just, with the territory, no one who doesn't like Star Wars is going to try this.
I just don't see it. I think you still need a little bit of prerequisite knowledge, don't you? Just about the Empire, why they're a bunch of dicks, why they're a substitute for Nazis and whatever, because we saw a bit of that in this episode. I think that helps. But it definitely feels different, doesn't it? I mean, I wonder, would Mandalorian be what it was if it wasn't for Baby Yoda? We hate ourselves, or I hate myself for it, because I'm like, Disney, you bastard, you've just Disneyfied this little thing. You've Disneyfied Yoda, shrunk him down just to make us love him. By God, you've succeeded, you bunch of bastards, but I love it. And the best thing about Boba Fett were the 2 Mando episodes that we got. So, that was enjoyable. But do you not think that they're suffering a little bit in the same way that the MCU is suffering, in that, you've got all these series, and, a lot of them are a 6 out of 10, they are good, but none of them tend to really hit it out the park. Like you say, when you watch Chernobyl, and you're just like, holy shit. And I think that's so different. Game of Thrones left a sour taste in everyone's mouth, didn't it? Because the way they finished it off, those last 2 episodes, series was terrible. But you still go back to those first 3 seasons, and by God, that is some of the best TV that I've ever seen in my life. So I think they still need to step it up a little bit. I mean, how many episodes are in this?
12 per season. There's going to be 2 seasons.
Right. So, I suppose it's still got somewhere to go. I mean, they're going to have to stretch it out a bit, though, aren't they? Because we know what happens to him in Rogue One, so he's got to do all this shit before he gets to Rogue One. So, no, it is good. It is good. But like I say, a very different tone. And I think the other thing that, I don't know, you're probably close to the Star Wars community than I am, but do people not get confused a bit with the timelines? It's like, oh, where's this one now? In terms, I know you always baseline at the Battle of Yavin, but when you had Clone Wars, brilliant series, but that's in this time. You got Rebels, which is in this slightly different time as well. You got Bad Batch, okay, that's after Clone Wars kind of thing, and it's weird. If you look at the MCU pre-Infinity War and Endgame, each movie that came out led on to the next one. So it was a linear thing that you could easily wrap your head around. And one of the criticisms that the series have had is like, oh, I don't know where this all fits in. And I don't know if that's a fair criticism. It's like, does it have to? Does it have to? Could it not just be its own thing? Whereas I guess with Star Wars, and again, because it is all of that, one continuity, that one canon, I just wonder if, at least for me, I have to keep thinking, right, okay, where is this in the timeline?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, you're completely right. Lots of people get confused about it. Megan asks me a lot. I probably say whenever a new Star Wars series happens, I get 5 messages from a variety of people saying, where does this fall in the timeline? I have no idea. And in the Star Wars groups I'm in as well, every day there's someone asking. And it's fair, because Star Wars, they try not to timestamp things too much, because then when they inevitably either retcon something or something comes in that squeezes in the gap of these two events happening, Kenobi kind of did that. The problem is you go, well, when did this happen and this happen? A lot of it is Vader. It's like, what is Vader doing now? I thought Vader at this point in this thing was doing this thing. I thought he was doing that thing, And Star Wars try not to give times. They just kind of vaguely say it's around this time. There's the 2017 Vader comics. They actually changed the timings of one of them. I can't remember exactly, I tackled it in the episode, but it was like halfway through the 2017 Vader comics, it was meant to be a time jump of, I think it was meant to be 2 years, but they pushed it up to like 5. So when I was rereading them for Comics in Canon, 4 years on from reading them originally, I was reading the digital versions and I was like, 3 years on? I was like, it's 1 year on. And I remember, and I got my physical copy, because normally when I do Comics in Canon, I use Marvel Unlimited in the iPad, especially when I'm doing older episodes. And so I compared the two crawls, and they are different. They've changed a smidge of it. So, but they haven't told anyone. I was like, what? And then I checked on like Wikipedia and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah.
You're onto something there. It sounds like a conspiracy to me. Get your conspiracy wall up.
But yeah, timeline thing is a weird one, because this is gonna, there's a lot of thought this is going to run concurrently with Rebels. So the idea of Andor vaguely is, I can't remember when they said, but it's something like every certain amount of episodes is like a year or so. We're like 5 years before Rogue One, and I can't remember what it was, but they said something like the last like 3 episodes of the whole series won't be out to like next year or whatever. That's going to lead into Rogue One. But it's like these 6 episodes are 5 years before. These 6 are 4 years before. Kind of like that. I try not to pay too much attention, because I find that then I'm expecting it in a sense. But yeah, Star Wars almost just need to, when they do, obviously they don't really do the crawl for series and things, they just need to start with saying 5 years before Rogue One. That's all just a little thing, it says a long time ago, Galaxy Far Far Away, they just do a little crawl, or they do what they did in Solo, which is just a bit of text saying on the streets of Corellia, or whatever they said at the start of Solo, after the Imperial reign or something like that. They just need to put approximately 5 years before the Death Star incident, or something. You don't even have to say you don't even have to kind of reference it outside of the movies, BBY and that sort of stuff. They could just say, or 5 years before Galen Erso died or some shit. You know what I mean? You could just do some random event from Rogue One and just say this is about 5 years beforehand, and not really worry too much. But they do a lot of stuff about press when the timeline is, and then when the show comes out, they don't really mention it, and it's just a bit. So yeah,
weird, isn't it?
I do get you. You. But delving into this episode, so I want to preface this first by saying I've written just in red on my little notepad, I don't think things will work out. That's I know we're not necessarily doing predictions at this moment, but my general vibe is I've said it before, I'm somewhat masochistic or sadistic in some of my shows I like to watch, because I do like watching some of my favourite characters get beaten down a lot. So one of the things I enjoyed about Kenobi, I was like, I love you, Kenobi, be in pain. For my amusement.
Suffer.
Yeah,
Suffer.
Exactly.
You're going to love Daredevil Born again then.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to that. But it's like, with this, obviously we know Andor survives, and then the stuff going on with Mon Mothma, we know that she survives. They're the only 2 characters that are guaranteed survival. I think Saul Guerrero is popping up at some point, and obviously we know what happens to him. But all the other characters, it's kind of Game of Thronesy in the sense of like anyone could die at any point. And I have a strong feeling we've got introduced to. We were talking before pressing record. There's like 6 or 7 characters that are where Andor is at the moment, and I've got most of the names written down. But it's like they're not all going to survive, and I have a horrible feeling all my favourite ones are going to have horrible deaths, and it's going to be like not brutal like Game of Thrones, but when you watch a character die and you're like, you do not deserve this.
Yeah.
That's the vibe.
No, I think it's going to be like Deadpool 2, really, isn't it, with X-Force? I think I can see it coming, to be fair. It's not going to go well. I mean, I think they're playing it up brilliantly, how it is this it's a ragtag mob, it's not a well-trained military unit or anything. They're all kind of all suspicious of each other. They're kind of winging it. They've just got a burning desire. And I have to say, the axe remembers, the axe forgets but the tree remembers. I think it's such a brilliant saying, and I'm definitely going to remember that, and I'm sure I will be using it at some point. I'm assuming that's an old saying that I've just never heard. But I was like, oh, that is so brilliant. And, you can see from this episode, it digs into, why are the different characters involved? Why do they care? You get the one guy, what was his name? Skeet or something?
Skeen.
Skeen. And, he's got it's almost like a barcode on him, isn't it? It's almost like the Jews got tattooed, didn't they, in the Nazi prisoner of war camps? And, he recognizes, with Cassian's obviously recognizes that from him as well. And I just thought the way it was built up was really good. And the fact that the Empire, you can see that they're stamping on all of these people. And you've got people like Mon Mothma's family and everything doing very well. You can see Mon Mothma's trying to do something, but a family don't give a shit, really. They're just living the high life and enjoying it. There'll be plenty of people like that, which is why, again, I still question why they changed the end of Return of the Jedi, because it's like, surely there'll be a lot of people who were quite comfortable with their lives and don't give a shit that there was this militant group who blew up another Death Star. So, but anyway, getting off topic there. So yeah, I just love the way it delved into those characters, and there was no fight scenes or anything. This was really Games of Thrones. It was very heavy on dialogue, and getting to know these characters, which, like you say, and there was another character. What was his name? I think it was Karras. He gave off real. Is it Mouse from Matrix?
Oh, it's a
little programmer.
Nemec. Yeah. Nemec, was it the Alex
Nemec? Karras Nemec gave off those kind of vibes where he's all enthusiastic and he's looking up to Cassian and stuff. So there was lots of little things that felt familiar to something else, and no, I just loved it. Honestly, I think it was pure luck of coming on with this episode, but for me at least, this was my favourite episode so far in the season.
I agree completely. I did. Now that you mentioned Mouse, it's funny because Mouse has my least favourite death in all the Matrix movies. I don't know what it is, but when I first watched The Matrix, and I think he might be the first one to die when everything goes bad, and he's just, obviously, he opens the door and it's a wall, and he's like, oh no, and he's just got the panic, and he turns around and just gets chunks blown out of him, like almost Robocop style, and then you're seeing his body there, connected in, like, hemorrhaging and stuff, and it's like, this is awful. And then obviously they all eventually die, but basically all of them. That death always got me the most. And with Nemec, him talking about his manifesto and stuff, I'm like, you're gonna, now that you've said it's connected the dots in my head, he's gonna have a horrible Mouse-like death, isn't he?
I think he will. Yeah. And again, he's so young. He's like, he's in it for the right reasons and everything. He's quite idealistic. Yeah, you're going to die, sunshine.
It's so sad. But it's one of the things I think that Tony Gilroy is doing very... Obviously, he didn't direct all the episodes, he's the showrunner, but him putting these things together did exactly what Rogue One did so well, which is, how have you made us care about characters that we basically know aren't going to survive? You make them real. They all feel like real people. There's conflict there, and I think one of the things I love is Star Wars, the majority of conflicts are pew-pew conflicts. So either a shiny light sword or shooting around or whatever. But this, you can feel in a situation like the Rebellion, and it was mirrored with Mon Mothma speaking with her family. And it's what Game of Thrones does so well, which is the power of a conversation. Everyone's been in a scenario where you have a conversation with someone and you're not shouting at each other, you're not swearing at each other, but one of you saying something and the other one's saying something else. And there is some insane tension and like weight between what's being said. And I found with this episode, I was like on the edge of my seat. I knew, I knew, air quotes, I didn't think the plan was going to go ahead till next episode. But I just felt with all the music choices and the power of the conversation and the whole filmmaking, and obviously all the actors are phenomenal in this, of just, it felt like, and I think, as I said, the music really helps this, something's bubbling, something's like coming together, like you can kind of feel that, almost this kind of noise in the background that's getting louder and louder and louder and louder, and it's going to get to breaking point. And this episode I felt so tense.
Definitely. Yeah, very real, really, really well built up in terms of tension and everything. It does remind me. I remember seeing years ago, again before Game of Thrones went off the rails, that the most unrealistic thing about Game of Thrones is how productive all the meetings are. Because those meetings are just nonsense. I spend a lot of time in meetings, and I have to say that's true. But I think even the way it starts off, you've got Khan, who's basically, in a shitty, he's in his mum's place, which is a shitty little place. It's down at the bottom, isn't it, of the city at Coruscant, and he gets to see the sunlight for about 30 seconds, and then that's it. That's the highlight of the day then. And he's getting chipped away at by his mum, who's like, disappointed with him, but trying to steer his life still, and you can sort of empathize with him, and again, I think that's what they're trying to do. That they're getting away from that, Empire bad, Rebel Alliance good. It's trying to just show you where are these people coming from, and what is their motivation, where are those lives, where are they coming from and everything. So I don't even really know where his arc is going to go. Is he going to get obsessed with Cassian, and he's going to be a nemesis kind of thing? But he is a really interesting character. He does really, something about his energy, his aura. It just bursts off the screen, doesn't it? I find him so, like, his expressions are so. There's so much going on there without any dialogue with him. And you're not sure what it is. What is he thinking? But it's something, So
an intensity.
No, I enjoy his character, but I don't know. I'm always thinking, just stop being a dick. Join the alliance. See the light of your ways. But I don't think that's going to be it for him. I think he's going to like the other two are trying to piece together the randomness. Those people. I think they're not jumping over to the good side either. They're going to thwart someone's plans, and I suspect that's where everything's going to converge.
Yeah, I was going to ask, actually, that is a very nice segue into the ISB. So the Imperial Security Bureau, in the books especially, they are quite a major part, and in the comics they are to a degree. But if anyone doesn't know, they basically investigate people. Jack brilliantly put it in last episode. He put the sort of the 5 departments, in a sense, of the Imperial Security Bureau, how they work, what they do, etc. Getting information on the enemy, but also a lot of it is internal affairs. A lot of what the Empire does is they look inward, and anyone who starts showing signs of rebellion or insubordination or anything, nip that in the bud, pull them out, torture them, move them, kill them, whatever. You do not go against the Imperial machine. That's how it worked for 20 years, and really only when the Empire went too far and blew up Alderaan, that's the point where Palpatine went from being, an emperor to Sith Palpatine. That's the moment that the vast majority of systems started joining the rebellion. That's the moment there was a high amount of Imperial defectors, because the Empire do horrible things, but in the name of order, you can kind of understand. I mean, it's Britain, isn't it? Obviously, we went around and slaughtered God knows how many people in the name of imperialism, and we're doing things the right way. Yes, if some people die, that's okay, because the greater good's fine. But if you go and like firebomb an entire country, you can't really argue there was just cause for that. And I think that with the Empire, what this show's doing well is there are so many characters who do support the Empire and are good people. Ray Sloane is a character who's in the Aftermath books, and she appears in A New Dawn as well, which is the prequel to Rebels, book where Hera and Kanan are. She's in that as well, and she's an Imperial till she dies. She is fully in it, but she is a good person. She just believes that the Empire is the best way. And in all honesty, even in today's society, America do all kinds of atrocities, so do England. But very few people are saying, let's take down the entire system in a serious way. You get protests, you get people who are anti-government, that's fine. But the idea of, hey, let's kill some government officials, very few people who disagree with our government are going to be like, yeah, let's car bomb some government, some MPs in Britain. Let's kill some politicians.
I know. Last January got pretty close, didn't it, in America?
Yes. In America, obviously, there was that boiling point. But those people weren't considered heroes, the Capitol Riot. Even people who are very anti-America and anti-establishment don't view the Capitol Riots as the right way to, air quote, fight the man. So there's all these weird things that are kind of in Star Wars, as you put it. I like that we're getting into the grey. I'm like it's showing there are good people who are in the Empire because they thought it was the right thing to do. Just like there are going to be bad people, air quotes, in the Rebellion. And that's what I like. So with those people, they only got a small scene in this one. But that woman, who I was just about to look it up because there's so many characters in this, it's very hard to kind of remember who's who. But the woman who is the Imperial Security Bureau, the woman in white, who argued with the guy who played the Grand Maester in Game of Thrones, because everyone's in Game of Thrones.
Miro. I think Dedra Miro.
That certainly could be her name. If you're on IMDb right now, then you are going to be okay. Her, yes. So what do you think of them? What do you think of the ISB and that kind of behind closed doors? Because we haven't got to see that very much in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because Tony and Jack did 1984 on Tonya's banned book series, and I was listening to that, and they just feel like that. You know, that kind of bureau. They're like you said, they're kind of looking outside, but they're also looking inside as well. You know, it's a bit of a KGB sort of thing, and you know how governments try and control narrative and propaganda and everything. So again, I don't feel like I'm picking up on everything that's going on there. But again, I think, well, it's not there for no reason. I think this is they're gonna thwart the plans, or at least come close to thwarting the plans of the Rebel Alliance. And again, I guess if it's 12 episodes, you know, we're only on episode 5, not even at the halfway point yet. So, you know, you would think about now, or you know, episode 6 or 7 is about the time to have a failed mission. You know, so maybe they'll thwart that one, and then maybe they'll have better luck as you get close to 12.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I just looked up the actress as well, and you were correct in that. I'm going to say her name one more time. It's Dedra Miro. The actress who plays it is Denise Goff. I know her because she voices Yennefer in The Witcher 3, which is arguably one of the greatest video games of all time from a narrative and gameplay perspective. But that's what got me into the Witcher series, actually. But she's incredible. I love the spy and espionage stuff. And the funny thing is with Andor, like I'm really enjoying the Andor mission, you know, trying to go with that group of people who've been living in what looks like the Scottish Highlands for months, if not years. That I'm interested by it, but I think things are going to go wrong. I think a lot of people are going to die, and that's going to be the action stuff. But the behind-the-scenes espionage things, the investigation from the ISB, and then what Mon Mothma is doing, they're the parts that really intrigue me the most. And I think because, you know, I love the action in Star Wars, but with someone like myself who's consumed every piece of Star Wars media on that's a series, apart from I haven't seen all of Force of Destiny, which is like a 2-minute cartoons for kids. Aside from that, I've seen all of those. I've read a good chunk of the books. I've read every comic. So the action side of things, I've got covered for a lot of it. But the feeling, I think, is one of the things I love about Star Wars. But in this show, when you get all this espionage stuff, I feel like when Mon Mothma's just talking to her family, I'm like, this is breadcrumbs away from her entire life falling apart, because she's doing she's committing treason, serious treason, like, and she's doing this, and it seems like her family, as you say, not only do they not know, they actually don't care, and they would be actually against it. So the towing the line part of her, like Genevieve O'Reilly is incredible as Mon Mothma, and she's played Mon Mothma in every iteration of Mothma apart from the original trilogy, even voice acting. So I love it. Seeing her side of things is something I really enjoy. What about yourself? Have you thought about Mon Mothma's side of things and stuff?
I think it's wonderfully tragic, actually, because you know it's all going to go tits up at some point, isn't it? You know, she's going to lose her family. That might be because they get killed, or that might be because, you know, they just disown her or something like that. But at the moment, she's okay kind of operating in the shadows. You know, she's leading this double life. She's helping the Alliance, but she's keeping up appearances in her public life and everything. And what changes. I am genuinely interested in that. How does she go on to lead the Rebel Alliance? But I think one of the other reasons I find it wonderfully tragic, I always feel like if you're going to truly excel, or you are going to be, say you're going to be the world's greatest 100-meter sprinter, or you're going to go into politics and be the president of the USA, or whatever it is, you have to cut something else out of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship that she had with her daughter, well, I think to myself, well, I wouldn't want to have that relationship with my kids. Her daughter doesn't appreciate like what she's doing. She's got no idea. She's just like, well, you're not spending enough time with me, or and she's not. She's probably, when she could have been spending time with her daughter, she's probably off having secret mission like discussions and meetings with people, to organize the alliance. And I think it's just a little bit of a slice of life, really, isn't it? It's, again, you're always striving for that balance, especially when you got, family, kids, pets, all of that. You're like, right, I know I need to do work, and that pays for my house and food and everything, but then I want to kind of have a private life as well. I want to spend time with the kids, and you're always striving for that balance. I don't know if that was what they were thinking. I wonder where it's going to go with the family. I don't really know how to take the husband yet. I mean, clearly he doesn't really care. He seems to have a great life. Could have been played by Matt Berry, quite honestly. I think Matt Berry would have. Cool. He would have been a good choice for Mon Mothma's, bit on the side. But he's not that interested. But also, I feel like if he got wind that she was up to something, I think he'd chop her. I think he'd throw her under the bus. And so I just wonder, are they going to get carted away, or what is going to happen? I am interested by that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know Mon Mothma had a kid. I'm not, the world expert on Mon Mothma. I know Comics in Motion people think I know everything about Star Wars. I really don't. I try to learn where I can, but I don't know.
To be the expert, you just have to know a lot more than anyone else. And for us, you're the expert.
Thank you. But with Mon Mothma in particular, like I've read, I know that she survives through the original trilogy, and then by the time of The Force Awakens, just before that, she gets quite ill, about 5 or 10 years before The Force Awakens, and then that's why Leia kind of starts up the Resistance, because Mon Mothma's just not really about anymore. I don't think she's explicitly dead in the sequel trilogy. I think that she's just kind of faded into the background. But Claudia Gray wrote Bloodline, which is a political thriller about Leia. It's like half-ish way between episode 6 and episode 7. It's about what the political landscape is of the galaxy. Mon Mothma starts to demilitarize the New Republic. That's how the First Order started, bubbling under the surface and things. And so with that, and then there's a book called Leia, Princess of Alderaan, also by Claudia Gray, and that is set about 3 years before A New Hope, and it's about Leia finding out her parents are part of the rebellion, and how she deals with it. And Mon Mothma's in 1 or 2 chapters of that. I don't remember Mothma mentioning a daughter. I don't remember her mentioning a husband either. So I think what you're kind of getting at, I believe it's probably the case. It's going to be, something's going to happen, she's going to get found out, and a family are going to be like, or the dad is going to, or husband, whatever, he's going to be like, I want no part of this. If you get our daughter involved in this is treason. They will execute all of us. So you have to stop. And she's like, I can't stop this. And they're going to go, bye then. And we're going to probably see some quite emotional scenes with her, of her being just in her lavish house by herself. And she's going to have to kind of cover up things. You're going to have to be like, where have the family gone? Me and my husband have just been having problems. And then it's like, why? What's going on there? You're not the nuclear family anymore. And I wonder if that's going to be part of the unraveling.
See, if I was to hazard a guess, I think she's going to be away on some mission, but it's all going to come out that she's, playing this double life. And then, the stormtroopers or whoever are going to storm the house, and they're only going to find the husband and the kid. And then they're going to incarcerate them and never be seen again. That's what the SS would do. Yeah,
I mean, the ISB definitely are into that sort of thing, so making people disappear. And I think that this being a spy thriller is something that's very much intriguing me and things. But one sort of the last aspect we haven't really tackled here. Obviously, we've been jumping around all over because the pure narrative of this episode, although I wrote notes, it's the story is not the weakest part, but it's like the actual plot of this film, of this series, this episode specifically, is probably about 4 sentences. But it's not about what's moving the plot forward. It's all of the foundation around what's going to happen next. Everything is going to happen, I think, in the next big episode. So with all the individuals that are the one of the cells of the rebellion, before the rebellion's like the rebellion is the Rebel Alliance. It's called the Rebel Alliance because there's different cells of the rebellion that started by themselves. Like we see in Star Wars, Rebels is a very good way of doing it. You get Saw Gerrera's partisans in Rogue One. You get a variety, and in Rogue One specifically, you get to see some of these different cells clashing. But that's what the Rebel Alliance is groups of people who are fighting the Empire by themselves, and then a thread connects them all, and we get to see a bit of that in Rebels, and slowly brings them together, and then you get the Rebel Alliance, and that's what we see in the original trilogy. So with this small cell, people just trying to do some damage to the Empire and trying to steal, a quarter of like a certain sector's payroll for a year or something, like a mental amount of stuff. What did you find about these characters? Obviously, you mentioned that Nemec/Mouse is probably going to die, and then also got Skeen, the gentleman with the tattoos. So what do you think about, there's Lieutenant Gorn, who is the Imperial officer, who's like the defector. What do you kind of think of him and any of the other characters around there that kind of stood out for you?
I mean, the first thing was with Gorn, I think of the big lizard that fought Captain Kirk. wasn't he called Gorn?
I'm not a big Star Trek fan. I know the scene you're talking about, the really cheesy, like, they lift up the rock that's clearly just weighs about half a pound.
Yeah, I think you mean brilliant. But no, it is cheesy as fuck, but I just love it. Yeah, no, the thing I'd say, I think initially, my thoughts on the overall episode, okay, there's the plot, but really it's just a lot of dialogue. So it's more about understanding the characters. And I think it was more about those parent-son/daughter relationships, going from Khan at the start, with his mum, and you can see he's struggling to break free and he wants to become his own man kind of thing. Skeen is talking about his brother and the fact that, where that kind of went, and he had his old tree farm, and then again, that was sort of playing on the whole axe, the axe forgets and the tree remembers kind of thing, and Mon Mothma and her daughter. So I think that was the running theme throughout this episode. But yeah, again with I'm trying to think now. Gorn, there's so many side characters. There's like Gorn, there's Blevin as well, and you can see some of them have just got a disregard. They're like, oh, we'll make a new office block out of this, just casually just disrupting people's lives, and you think, you are the douchebags, and you're the douchebags. It's not like David Mitchell who's like, are we the baddies? So, yeah, that's what, for me, gives it the Game of Thrones feel. It's not, the goodies and the baddies. It's all these different characters. And like I say, if this is why I need to go back and watch it again, I need to pick on what all these relationships are and what their relation is to each other as well. So yeah, I don't really, I didn't really pick up on the characters as such, but the little things that I kind of picked up on. I mean, it looks like the Scottish Highlands or Wales or something, doesn't it, where they've shot there. But when the TIE fighter comes, and you're sort of thinking, well, how doesn't it see them? Is it scouting for people? And you sort of think, well, no, or is it just being a dick? It's like actually just terrorizing the local farmers is what they're doing. And I think that's where I settled is, yeah, they're just being fucking dicks to the people because they can be, because they're the Empire. So, as grey as it is, they're still shits. So I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm along for the ride. I do feel like there's this massacre coming, and I want to see where the likes of Gorn, where his character goes. Why do we care about him? Why is he relevant? And Blevin as well. I don't really understand that now. I can't quite read where that's going to go.
Yeah. Well, I found that when I was watching this episode, watching Lieutenant Gorn in those scenes, like, could you imagine being an Imperial defector but still having to be undercover? Like, I was saying to Megan when I was watching it, I was like, I can't. Like, obviously, there are heroes. Throughout history, there have been heroes. Obviously, with Nazi Germany, the amount of people who saved people running away from concentration camps and things is staggering. And most of their names will never be remembered, unfortunately, because that's not always how history works. But I was just thinking, like, even me watching it, I'm feeling so nervous every time I see him on screen around other Imperials, because it's like his heart isn't in it. And it's like he knows if he slips up once, if someone follows him when he goes on his speeder bike sort of scouting check and goes and talks to the other rebels, he's gone. And isn't obviously he has like nothing to lose. That's kind of what I think Vel said about him, which is like, you know, he lost everything apart from his wife to the Empire. So he left with his wife and then he lost her. So he just lost all hope in it. And I'm like, I can't imagine anything worse than trying to be in an army that you are defecting on. It's terrifying.
You know, and I do appreciate this is a bit grittier. It's a bit more adult than a lot of the other Star Wars content, especially the series. But you know what I would love in this series is something like a Tarantino style scene, you know, because I'm thinking in particular of like Inglourious Bastards. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a bit at the start, you know, and you've got the guys hiding the Jews in the basement, being interrogated. It is a wonderfully crafted scene, like the camera positions, the cinematography, and everything. It just builds up that tension, and you feel anxious watching it. You are shitting yourself, you know. And also, there's a bit later on where Michael Fassbender and the crew are talking to this SS officer, and you know you've got the German army officers in there as well, and they're having this dialogue, and they're trying to pass off that they're German, and it's you got a funny accent there, and the scene goes on for like 10 minutes, and you're like, shit, get out of there, god damn it! Every time I watch it, you know, and I think they're going to escape this time, but I want to see something of that level in this series, and that would elevate from where it is now. Because it's kind of tense, but it's TV show tense, isn't it? I want to see proper stakes, proper Quentin Tarantino style tension building scenes.
That would be amazing. I agree. I think we will get there eventually. I think generally speaking, it's 3 episode arcs. I in general, is like a loose idea. So I think this next episode we're going to see how it goes. Hopefully, it goes well. They're probably going to get the money. I don't think they're going to get all the money they want, and I don't think many are going to survive. But we'll start to wrap up here. So I also want to say Blue Milk. Just have to mention it because it was fun watching cereal with Blue Milk. It cracked me up. But are there any sort of final thoughts of this show as a whole, or any elements? Because obviously, although this episode, I was really interested to talk to you about this episode, because it's all like a boiling point almost. I'm somewhat jealous of Jack next week, because he's going to have, and whoever he has as guest, he's going to have a lot to talk about, I think, with the next episode. So what are your sort of final thoughts or any vague predictions you want to say just before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably said it about 3 times, but probably in the next episode, and you're right, I'd heard that before as well, about the 3 arc, or the 3 issue arc, or 3 episode rather, it's not a comic. So yeah, I don't have a good feeling. But, you know, the next episode, it might be a bit of a bloodbath. So there might be a lot to dissect then. And old Mouse, you know, he's at it. Yeah, because what's his name? The chap. No, the architect, the guy who brought Cassian in.
Oh, Luthen Rail.
Is that him? So
Stellan Skarsgård.
That's him. Yeah. So he's saying, "Oh yeah, this is where it all starts." And you vibe it, not me. So I think this is going to be the false start, and I think this is going to be a prompt. You know, if it was a movie, we're approaching the halfway point, aren't we? We're approaching the bit where Rocky has to have his arse handed to him by Clubber Lang. He's got to knock him on his arse and he's got to question everything about him. Cassiana's got to think, I've been in this for the money, but you know what? I'm not in it for the money anymore. I'm in it for this reason, and whatever this reason is. So I think just a failed mission will not be enough to make him do that. So it has to be, it's got to be a bloodbath, hasn't it? It's got to leave. It's got to leave him in the position of being the tree, hasn't it? So the tree remembers, and that's where I think the next episode is going to go.
Brilliant. And I just want to say, when you mentioned earlier on the episode, the axe forgets but the tree remembers, and how when you heard that, you were like, wow, that is brilliant. I felt the same. I wrote on my notes, I wrote the name of the episode, the axe forgets. And then when Skeen said, the axe forgets but the tree remembers, I was like, oh, deep cuts there, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Once again, I don't think they created it, but it was so apt, so appropriate. And I was like, and they get the episode name, just chef's kiss on that regard. But yeah, I think if I was a betting man, I would be betting against the lives of all of these people. And as you said, it's funny because Alex Lautner plays Nemec, and I saw him he's in a Black Mirror episode, but he's also in a show called End of the Fucking World, and it's absolutely phenomenal show.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So good. It's on Netflix now. I think it's a Channel 4 show, but it's on Netflix now, the UK Netflix. I recommend anyone checks it out. Each episode's only like 20, 30 minutes long, and there's 2 seasons. I think because it's British, we don't decide to have a million fucking episodes. So we've only got I think it's like 6 episodes or 8 per season or something. Absolutely phenomenal. His acting in that is incredible. But it's funny because me and Megan were talking about him because we were scrolling through Netflix and we saw End of the Fucking World, and we're like, oh yeah, I remember watching that, a couple of years ago. We just watched the trailer just as a nice little reminder, and we're like, oh, and I was like, I haven't seen Alex Lautner in anything recently. He's got to be due something. And then the next day, he's into Star Wars. I was like, what? Who's listening to me in my house?
Am I in the Matrix?
There have been many moments in my life where that has been a question. But yeah, I agree. I think next episode's going to go badly. But I'm very excited by this show. This show's completely surprised me. I like that it feels different. I don't want a million Mandalorian clones or anything like that. And I feel like this is the big series win to kind of rein Star Wars back for a lot of people who felt like Kenobi missed its mark a little bit and Book of Boba Fett missed its mark a little bit, which, although I enjoyed both, I would say Boba Fett definitely missed the mark a lot. But I'm very excited to see where this can go. And this is finally going to be a show that is a good show that's also in Star Wars, rather than just being a good Star Wars show. So I'm very excited about that. So we'll wrap up here. Dave, I know you're doing 1,000,001 things, including 150,000 episodes of Reality Cast. You've got VHS Strikes Back. You pop up on Comics in Motion, doing lots of guest spots in random places and things. I think you were on a Banned Books episode as well. So tell people, there's lots of stuff. I'll make sure I've said it now. I have to put a link in the description. I've cursed myself. But tell people if there's anything you want to say that hasn't already been said about Andor, please go ahead. And then please tell people anywhere they can find you and anything that you're currently involved with, which is everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, the first thing is it's been brilliant to get on and speak to you again, just geek out a little bit and talk about, what we saw and what we think and, what might be going on there. So absolutely brilliant. Things that I'm involved with at the minute. So obviously the VHS Strike Back, I think we've got a classic coming out next week because we've hit October. So it's kind of, Halloween season, isn't it? So we've got Jaws, the original Jaws coming up. Scared the living shit out of me. Left its deep shark tooth scars all over me. I still shit scared of going in the sea due to that. I still say that 70s parents were fucking shit, letting us watch that shit. It was a PG. Damn you, Steven Spielberg. But apart from that was good fun to go back and watch. And you mentioned about Chris and Dave's reality TV cast, currently following Married at First Sight. And we did our first interview because normally we just take the piss out of everyone, and we still do that. But, occasionally we'll spot someone and they'll be a good fit. And so we interviewed a lady called Lara, who she came in and married this guy who got the guitar out on the wedding day, proper David Brent style. So it was like, we've got to try and get her on. And so she was a lot of good fun. What else? Yeah, so you mentioned Bambooks on Tonya's project. That was fantastic. What else? Something coming up on Comics in Motion. So I actually did the draft with Paul. So myself and Chris did kind of 80s and 90s animated characters. And whereas, the first two episodes have been brilliant. You had Tony and Max, you had Rhea and Jack, and they were so thoughtful and they were so polite, and they were like, oh, very good pick. Oh, that was very good. Me and Chris fucking went for it. Gloves were off, going for each other's throats. We are in this shit to win. So, as soon as that comes out, I'll be doing a guerrilla social media marketing campaigns.
That's so good. I love hearing your guys' banter is just it's one of the key things people I think love about the reality cast, VHS Strikes Back, obviously Comics in Motion, TV, movies. It just works so well. It's so much fun. Always delightful hearing the two of you. Yeah, I'll make sure I include links in the description to all of those things. Depending on when the super draft comes out, I might just put a link to say, remember, check this out. And then I'll try my best when it does come out to edit the show notes. But with these weekly discussion shows, 99% of people don't listen after the next episode's out, which is fair. But yeah, with myself, I'll just say, check out Star Wars Comics in Canon, check out Genuine Chit-Chat, the guest spots I've done. I went on Ike's Flame recently and spoke about the High Republic, which was quite fun. I've been on the She-Hulk episode 7, I think, with Megan. I've also been on Frank Burton's I Like the Sound podcast. I spoke about some of the sounds I like, so that's quite fun, especially if you're an audiophile. And that's more or less it for the time being. I'll include links in the description. Oh, there's also the Disney discussions. Myself, Megan, Rhea, and Spider-Dan. We did another episode of Disney discussions, and that was on the weird and wonderful side of Disney. 3 Disney films that aren't even on Disney Plus because they're so weird.
That was a great episode, by the way. I was listening to that at the gym. Really good episode.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And we're recording the next Disney discussions on Monday, actually, I think. So that will probably be out in about a month because we normally try and give ourselves a bit of a break. But yeah, that's everything from ourselves. So, thank you so much for listening, as always, my friends. Obviously, thank you to Dave, as always, coming on. Delightful human being and having the platform of Comics in Motion to have us on. And yeah, just thank you so much for listening, as always, my friends. We appreciate all of you. We'll speak to you next week. Will be Jack once again hosting, which I'm very excited to hear, and this episode that comes out. And just may the Force be with you.